All right, welcome to the Franchise Sports Talk College Football Blog. I'm your man Akeem McCall here, wrapping things up with my previews for the 2012 college football season. Today, I need to talk about the 9 AQ teams and conferences for this year. I talked about all the BCS qualifying conferences, but now I'm going to wrap things up with the 9 AQ teams and conferences. Now, one of the biggest news coming into this season is Boise State. They're preseason ranked 25th, but they're going to have to reload with a lot of key players on the offensive side, particularly their star quarterback, Kellen Moore. He was the winningest quarterback in college football history, and that's going to be a huge void to fill in. Coach Peterson has a lot in his hands. He's going to have to reload with weapons on the offensive side. Also, Doug Martin, who's also part of the NFL now, and they're going to have to rely on newcomers to see who will step up for this 25th ranked Boise State Broncos. But the biggest news of all the non-AQ conferences is Notre Dame. They arguably have the hardest schedule in college football this season. They have a lot of away games with some of the top 10 teams of the nation coming into this season. And this is going to be a tough year for Brian Kelly. I honestly believe if they pull off 9 wins this year, that will be a great, successful year. This is going to be a tough schedule, and I'll talk about some of the key games coming towards the end of this blog. Now, I'm going to start things off with the impact players to look at this season. Starting at the quarterback position, 2 players in particular. Alex Carter out of Western Michigan. He had 31 touchdown passes to go along with 14 interceptions. He is a good NFL prospect that a lot of scouts are going to be looking at. He passed for just under 4,000 yards. He has a good arm, and I'm definitely going to keep an eye on him for the Broncos. Also, another quarterback we need to talk about is Tyler Tellington out of Ohio. This kid is a good quarterback and an underrated dual threat. He averaged 4 yards per carry. He had 28 touchdown passes with 10 interceptions to go along with 10 rushing touchdowns. Now, this is going to be an interesting year for the Bobcats this year because they kind of have a favorable schedule, and they might have a chance of going undefeated and probably making it to a BCS bowl game. But we will see. I'll let you guys know about that later on in this vlog. At the running back position, Robbie Rouse out of Fresno State rushed for over 1,500 yards. I think he's a good running back to replace Ryan Williams during his tenure at Fresno. Also, Zach Line, he's a good running back out of SMU. He had 2 straight 1,000-yard seasons, 1,400 yards a couple of years back, and 1,200 yards this year. He will lead the Mustangs in that ground attack. And at the receiver position, I got 2 players in particular, starting with Nick Harwell of Miami of Ohio. He was actually 5th in the nation in receiving yards with just over 1,425 yards receiving and 14.7 yards per catch to go along with 9 touchdowns. He's going to be that go-to guy for Zach Dyser and the Red Hawks of Miami of Ohio. Also, last but not least, at the receiver position, Quentin Patton. He's a great receiver out of Louisiana Tech. He reminds me so much of former Bulldog Troy Edwards. He broke a lot of records during his stay at Louisiana, and I'm looking a lot at Quentin Patton for this year for the NFL, for the 2013 NFL draft. He's a great receiver, and during this past season, he had over 1,200 yards receiving, and he was double teamed and even triple teamed a lot in coverage, and he still managed to pull up good productive yards to have 11 touchdown receptions this season. I think he's one of the go-to guys that you need to look for the 9 AQ performers of this year at the receiver position. On the defensive side, I definitely had to talk about Monte Teo of Notre Dame, the star linebacker. He has improved throughout his college football career. Last season, he jumped up the tackles for loss and sacks. He's going to be all over the field. He will definitely be one of the finalists for Defensive Player of the Year this season in college football at the end of the year awards. And 2 other players we need to talk about for impact players on the defensive side. I'm going to go to Tulsa's Dexter McCoy. He had 6 interceptions last season to go along with 84 tackles. I think he's a decent cornerback, and he could probably even transition to the safety position. Also, Jalil Adai. He's a good cornerback out of Central Michigan. He had 4 interceptions last season to go along with 107 tackles. He is actually on the preseason watch list for Jim Thorpe Award given to the nation's best defensive back. He's a great defensive back, had a couple of big games, especially against Northern Illinois, where he posted 18 tackles. He will definitely be all over the field. He has no fear of getting to the running back, pacing against the bigger, tougher running backs of the MAC conference. I think he's a great cornerback to look at this upcoming year. Now, need to head to the breakout performers of this season to look at for non-AQ teams, starting with Terrence Owens, the quarterback out of Toledo. Now, this is a little bit of a side track story for him. He was actually drafted in the 40th round by the San Diego Padres in the MLB draft this past year, but he's still going to stick with football and be that quarterback for the Toledo Rockets. I think he could have a good year. He had 18 touchdowns with just 3 interceptions. 6th in the nation in passing efficiency for the quarterback position. I think he could be due for a big year. He passed for over 2,000 yards. Also, another quarterback to look at, Louisiana Lafayette's Blaine Gaither. He weighs 215 pounds at 6'1". He's a decent quarterback, passed for just under 3,000 yards with 23 touchdowns and 6 interceptions. He's a solid player. I think he could be due for a good season. That's why I definitely had to call out both these two guys. At the running back position, I have two in particular need to talk about. Going back to Notre Dame, Sierra Wood. He had over 1,000 yards rushing this past season, actually over 1,100 yards. I think he has the good finesse and speed to break through this season, probably rush for 1,500 yards this season. He is going to be splitting carries this upcoming year, but I think even though he's still going to have the bulk, I think he's going to have a great year, probably average 6 yards per carry. I think he's going to step up as a junior. Also from Colorado State, Chris Milwaukee. He rushed for over 1,000 yards as well, 5.7 yards per carry and 9 touchdowns playing in that Mountain West Conference. This is a kid, I think he could be due for first team all conference. I think he's a decent running back. Definitely look out for him in the Mountain West region. On the defensive side, going to talk about linebacker Art L'Oreal. He's a good linebacker. He had 9 sacks last season to go along with 59 tackles. I think he's going to be due for a bigger season, getting more involved in the tackling game as a linebacker, and I think NFL scouts definitely need to look at this kid. And last but not least, Chris Jones, the defensive tackle out of Bowling Green. He had 8 sacks last season at the defensive tackle position and 46 tackles. He's a good plunge in the middle, and I think he's going to wreak havoc in that line of scrimmage, and I think he's due to have double-digit sacks this year. That's why I definitely had to call out both these two players. Now, a couple of fresh fish. Need to talk about some freshmen. Going back to Notre Dame, Gunnar Kale, he actually started to head towards LSU, but decommitted from them and decided to sign with the Fighting Irish in the state of Indiana. He was actually the #1 quarterback and prospect according to Rivals.com. He has a good arm. He passed for 28 touchdowns his senior season in high school. One of the top players coming into this year's college football season. He's very accurate, and I think he could be a good addition and cause some competition with Tommy Reese, especially with Tommy Reese dealing with the off-the-field issues with court and dealing with the cops. I think that could give Gunnar Kill an opportunity to start right away at the quarterback position, but that's going to be a tough break for him. Also, at the receiver position, DeAndre Greenberry. He's a great receiver. Actually, he was ranked number 49 according to Rivals.com. He had an outstanding senior season, 2,100 yards receiving to go along with 32 touchdowns. Now, he first started going to Notre Dame, but decommitted and decided to go to Houston. So he's now part of the Cougars. He's looking to break Pat Everett's records, and I think he could be due for that. I think he could be that #1 receiver right away. Now, gonna head towards talk about some of the Heisman Trophy winner. I'm gonna give you my Heisman Trophy winner overall. I believe that Matt Barkley of USC is gonna win this award. I think it's a straight shot for him. He has so many weapons on the offensive side for the Trojans representing USC, and they possibly can make it to the national championship. I think he's gonna be probably the #1 quarterback coming towards the 2013 NFL draft, and he is obviously the #1 guy to look at the Heisman Trophy watch. Now, a sleeper for the Heisman Trophy, I really had a hard time thinking about this one, but I'm going to actually go with Sierra Wood out of Notre Dame. I know this is a little bit of a shocker for everybody. Notre Dame has a tough schedule. If he has a good performance, like 1,500, 1,600 yards, and lead Notre Dame Fighting Irish possibly to a BCS bowl game, he would definitely get a lot of recognition. So I'm going to go with him as a sleeper, and I know a lot of people are not thinking about him. That's why I had to call him out. Now, going to head towards the games, the key games for these non-AQ teams to look at coming into this year. Starting with on August 31st, Boise State's going to be traveling to Michigan State. That's going to be a good game to watch. The first game without Kellen Moore. We'll see how that results on September 1st, Ohio's going to be playing against Penn State. Now, I mentioned Ohio quarterback Tyler Tellison. He's a good quarterback, and I really think Ohio can possibly make it to a BCS bowl game because they have a favorable schedule. The biggest opponent that they have to worry about is Penn State. If they beat Penn State and win out, and hopefully they get enough voters, they can make it to a BCS bowl game. So that's going to be a key game to watch. September 22nd, Michigan's going to be traveling to Notre Dame. I mentioned it before on my Big Ten preview. October 13th, Stanford's going to be traveling to Notre Dame. Like I said, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish have the hardest schedule, and I have a lot more games to talk about. October 20th, BYU's going to be playing at Notre Dame. Both these two teams, independent schools, that's going to be a key game to watch. BYU is looking to make it to a BCS bowl game, possibly a national championship. October 22nd, 27th, two games to look at. BYU is going to be traveling to Georgia Tech, and Notre Dame is going to be traveling to Oklahoma. That's going to be a tough road match for both these two teams, particularly for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish going to Norman. That's going to be a tough game for this team. And last but not least, Notre Dame on November 24th, Notre Dame is going to be traveling to USC to face the Trojans. Another tough road match, road game for the Fighting Irish, and USC is ranked #1 preseason this year coming into this college football year. I really am intrigued about what's going to happen based on that game. Notre Dame might stay undefeated, or they're looking to spoil USC season, and that's going to be a key game to watch overall this season in college football. Now, my national champion, I'm going to actually go with the Trojans. I really believe that Matt Barkley is going to have a big year. He has just so many weapons on offense. Curtis McNeil rushed for over 1,000 yards, and he has two stud All-American caliber receivers in Robert Woods and Marquise Lee. That's going to be a great 1-2-3 dual trio between the running back McNeil and the quarterback and the quarterback Barkley, as well as Cyrus Red. They're looking to pick him up out of Penn State because of the allegations at Penn State. Cyrus Red might head over to USC, and that's going to be a great addition to the running back position and add more depth between McNeil and Red. Now, my sleeper this year for the national championship, a little bit of a surprise for you guys, Kansas State Wildcats. I really like Kellen Klein's play last season, 27 touchdowns. Yes, I know what everybody's saying. Akeem, you don't even have them winning the Big 12 championship. Yes, I know what I said. I'm still going to stick with West Virginia winning it, but as a sleeper for the national championship, I got to go with Kansas State because of Bill Snyder. He built a lot of momentum in the favor for the Kansas State Wildcats coming back. He actually even led them before to a Big 12 championship, and I believe that he can do it again. They have a lot of key players coming back like Nigel Malone, Arthur Brown, Klein, Hubert. They have a lot of weapons coming back on offense, particularly in Klein's favor, and I really think with all the momentum and how disciplined this team is, they could sleep their way to the national championship. So I'm going to have to go with the Wildcats on this one. Now, BCS Cinderellas, like I said before, I'm going to go with the Ohio Bobcats because of Tyler Tellison. They have a favorable schedule coming into this year, and in their 3 losses in the MAC conference, they were no more than 3 points. And I really think because of Northern Illinois' Chandler Hardis is no longer with the team, Tyler Tellison can lead this team to an undefeated season and possibly make it to a BCS bowl game. But they first got to get past Penn State. So I'm going to go with the Ohio Bobcats as a sleeper for the BCS and go with Kansas State as my sleeper for the national championship. Now, that wraps things up with all of my previews for college football. Now, I'm going to head towards the month of August, starting next week, where I'm going to head towards talking about fantasy football and give you my top 10 players and defenses to look at this upcoming season in the NFL. Thank you for watching today's vlog from Franchise Sports Talk. I'm your man, Akeem McCall. Be easy.